Hello, party peeps. I hope you're doing wonderfully. If you're receiving this, it's because you expressed interest in People Talk in some way, shape, or form. And a little bit of an agenda to keep myself on track so I don't ramble too much. Why you are receiving this video, email, communication. What is People Talk? Where did this start? Who will own it? How far into the build are we? And how can you get involved if you would like? So, as I said, you're receiving this because you expressed interest in People Talk. There are a lot of people, different stages of learning what this app is and what we're all about. And so, this video is just intended to get people up to speed as of January 28th, 2025. People Talk is different than other TikTok alternatives entering the space. We are, yes, a TikTok alternative, but we are decentralized and collectively owned. The goal is to build something that is accessible by all and corruptible by none, something that cannot be sold off to a billionaire. It cannot be sold off to a government agenda. There is not censorship on either side of the political spectrum. It is truly by the people, for the people, with the people, will always remain in the hands of the people it was designed to serve. We all know that a social media platform like this needs to exist, but for-profit interests usually prevent this from happening, even when people start off with the best of intentions, right? And that's my concern with a lot of players entering into the space right now, is that people understand that we need something different, that the existing platforms and honestly just our systems, the way that we do things, like it's not working anymore, and something needs to be different. But what I see happening is because they are building in a very traditional way and they're looking at the creation of companies in a very traditional way, they are very likely, I can almost say with certainty, going to fall into the same pitfalls and the same challenges as all of their predecessors in big tech. We need to do something radically different if we are going to make social media a space to connect people and not to exploit users, because there's just always been the contention between the for-profit motives of shareholders versus the interest of users versus the highest good of all involved. And what we're seeking to do at People Talk is to build that vehicle. So decentralized, collectively owned, by the people, for the people, with the people, crowdsourced is something else I should mention. Crowd-led, crowdsourced, crowd-funded. And I'll show you how we are doing this publicly and transparently. This all started a couple weeks ago, a little less than a couple weeks, somewhere in here. I posted a video on TikTok and it went viral. And my name is Kiara, by the way. I probably could have started with that. Within 48 hours, we had 10,000 signups. We are now up to 15,000 and counting. And we've got 2,000 people in our Reddit where we are just having a very open conversation. It is completely open forum. Like, we are building this publicly. We are building it transparently. We've got our tech stack here if you want to take a look at how we are building this. So if you're technical and you're like, why are you building on AT protocol? The answers are all in here. And now from the Reddit, we have surfaced the talent to actually build this, which brings up a question: who's going to own this, right? We've talked about collective ownership. We know that it needs to remain in the hands of the people it is designed to serve. Like, that is one of the big differentiators. And it's the only way social media is ever going to work and not become super corrupt. And so now we have to figure out how to do that because it hasn't been done. And initially, everyone who was coming to the table was like very adamant, like, we should make this a nonprofit, which is a lovely sentiment. But then when you actually look into a nonprofit, they are heavily regulated by the government. They have a governing board, which starts to get us away from this being democratically governed. We're looking at a liquid democracy, video for another day. And because it's got a governing board and large donors, it actually is susceptible to being co-opted. Again, we're trying to think of everything. We are trying to build something unfuckwithable. So now we're exploring, well, could it be a trust? Could it be a PBC? Are there other things that we just might not be aware of? And what we're kind of honing in on is a decentralized autonomous organization, especially because the build is quite Web3, so it would make sense. Now, it would be a DAO, and what we are considering is encoding the bylaws with the best of nonprofit principles, which means that, with a nonprofit, you are required to reinvest all profit into the mission. And there's there are numerous ways that we could do this, and we're really trying to land on an optimal solution. So if this is like seriously your wheelhouse and your expertise, and you think you might have the answer or part of it, please reach out to me. One thing that we could do is abolish equity altogether, so that there is never contention between the shareholders and the users on the app, even though there might be quite a bit of overlap there. It would eradicate that altogether. At the least, it makes sense to divorce financial stakes from governance. So, a few ways we could do that, but the example of everyone gets a one vote per person token, or a soul bound token that is non-transferable, and that is their voice in the organization. So we know it's going to be owned by the collective. How we actually go about making that possible and impossible to co-opt or impossible to sell off is something that we are actively debating. How far into the build are we? So while we figure out that, we've actually surfaced the talent to build this. And if you hop into our Reddit, you'll see the two most recent posts as of today are the call to all designers and the call to all developers. So this is crowdsourced, and the beauty and the power in that is that we are pooling the collective brain power, creativity, problem solving of a large group of people. Like, it is an absolute superpower. And we have a basic MVP sketched out. We've got our tech stack outlined. One of the developers that's joined forces with us actually may already have the base code. So he's already got something that's semi-functional that we may use as a base. And so other developers are jumping in with him in GitHub to check out the code and see where we go from there. In tandem, we have the Casey is her name, is running with the research component of this to surface anything else we might need to know about an MVP. So we're doing everything right. Over the next 2 weeks, she will be working with Katie, who is organizing the design team, to organize essentially a sprint in which we're going to surface anything else that we would need to know about an MVP. We think we know, but you also don't know what you don't know. And so they are running with that in the meantime, while the dev team is looking at the existing code and getting that functional, because regardless of what is surfaced in the user research process, we still know that this needs to basically be a replica of TikTok. And so, it's got a video scroll, it's got likes, it's got comments, and a lot of that is actually already built. But we're going to bring that together with the findings from the research component and kind of go from there. Also got, some lingering questions about algorithm. Is that at the heart of our first MVP, getting something that is passable? TBD. But generally speaking, we've got it outlined and it is moving really fast. So that's where we are in the build. How you can help. We've got the open calls that go out on Reddit. So if you're a developer or a designer, jump in and submit on these link off to surveys, or like intake forms rather. Also, when I keep an eye on the Reddit, I'm still trying to read through everything, but it's a lot. It's very active. And when I see people who have particularly good contributions, or we connect on LinkedIn and just obvious, your stuff or whatever, I'm pulling in all kinds of people for different committees. So whether it's our governance and business structure, whether it is our technical team, which is already kicked off, whether it is soon to be marketing and go to market. So that will be another thing. And if you kind of want to be on one of those like inner circles, then just stay connected with me in some way, shape, or form, like being very conscious of who is in our ecosystem and when to bring in the right people. But I only know if you're there, if I know that you're there. So, and the other thing is, I don't think this is going out to any influencers. Well, we'll see. But anyone who has a following on social media, and if you decide to if you decide to be in our corner with this, that is actually immensely helpful, because the success of this initiative will lie in numbers. When we talk about a distributed infrastructure, it's going to be expensive, and we're going to have to really have our crowdfunding strategy nailed. And I think the only way it's going to work, doesn't matter if I've got 100,000 people on the email list, right? We are going to need more. And so for that reason, it starts to look less like a social media app and more like a movement. So if you're an influencer, you producing content, being connected with us, that is, I think, going to be the absolute key in getting this initiative to work. And I think that's about it. If you have specific questions, you can always reach out to me, although I'm a little underwater with my inboxes right now. If you go to, uh, I'll send along my link tree too, but that should have most of what you would be looking for. We've got the onboarding newsletter, which is here, just an overview of, what it is, why we're building this, which you pretty much already know from this video. And then on the landing page here, there's some Q&A. There's the link to the Reddit, and then to our socials. There's also my professional background. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, always good to check out the background of. I was going to say founder, but I'm calling myself a steward because, again, we are not looking at ownership in a traditional way. I think that's it. If you've got questions, anything specific, I am happy to answer. Excuse any delays. There's just a lot to juggle at the moment. And you'll hear me say this often. I am so humbled and so grateful that I managed to say enough of the right things to get such brilliance and motivated and frankly amazing people in the same room. That was really hammered home to me last night when we did our technical kickoff. And I was like, the hell did I say to get these people here? So thank you. And let's build something unfuckwithable.